In this lesson, we're going to take a look at my preferred method to get started in Loopy Pro. This will give you perfectly recorded loops, a perfect entry point, and a perfect exit point. You know, more funking away. And I can stop it. 2, 3, 4, and bring it back in perfect. Once you get your head around this method, you're going to be able to start and stop your loops semi-hands-free. You're going to have to touch the screen, but it's not going to be as hard as it was in the first method where it starts recording immediately. We're going to set it up so that it gives us a little window at which we can press the loop, get to our instrument before the recording starts. So let's dive in. Along the way, you'll learn the advantages and disadvantages to this approach. So here is the Loopy Pro canvas. When you first open up a new session, it'll look a little different to this. I have just one audio clip in the center of our screen here. If you want to get rid of any of your clips, there'll be a bunch of them on your template. You can simply go into the canvas editor with this little pencil icon in the bottom left hand corner, and if you click and hold on any clip and you want to get rid of it, you can do so. I'm just going to leave one clip so that it takes up our entire canvas to really demonstrate what we're trying to achieve here. Now, the method you choose to start and stop recording, I think, is really important to understand, hence why I am dedicating an entire module to this inside my course. In the last video, we were looking at free looping, meaning the loop starts as soon as you let go of the screen, and then it records indefinitely until you are ready, and then you have to finish the recording. This approach is going to give us a count in and a count out. Now, let's just double check a couple of things so that you can follow along. I've gone into the settings here. Under clip settings, I've restored all of the defaults. I've done that just to make it very clear that this is the same settings that you are going to have when you first open a template. Now we have this loop in the middle here. Now by default, when I release this loop, it'll start recording. When I release it again, it'll finish that loop. Now you'll notice that's not a very good loop at all. That's because I had to let go of my screen, get to my guitar, and then get back to the screen again. So it's not really ideal for guitar players. Now, before you say it, I know we can configure a load of this stuff inside the settings in Loopy Pro. But again, with this module, we're trying to really understand the fundamentals. We're going to play with all that fancy stuff further along the road. So basically, this entire concept relies on the idea that you need to have a tempo. You have to have a grid to which we are going to play to. Now, the disadvantage to that is we need to set this up. You need to have an idea of what tempo you want to record at, or we can tap in the tempo, which I'll show you in a second. And then we are going to be fixed to a bar length or a loop length. For example, a 2-bar loop or a 4-bar loop. To pick a tempo, you need to head over to this top right-hand corner of your window. And where you've got these 3 little dots here, if we click on it, you can see this clock setting area. And at the moment, there is nothing displaying for a tempo. As soon as I click this slider, you'll see that it sets a tempo. Now I can move this slider along left or right to choose my tempo, or it's got this handy little function here, this tap tempo. Now I'm using a mouse at the moment, so I'm going to just tap it. But of course, you'd be tapping the screen if you're not using a mouse. And the cool thing there is, say I'm feeling kind of a funky riff, I can tap that kind of tempo, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to set roughly in the ballpark of what that tempo is. In this case, that's around 80 BPM. Now, I set a tempo, and then under here we have our bar lengths. Now, if I leave it on 1, by default, Loopy Pro will record a 1-bar loop. So I have my tempo set to 80, I have a 1-bar loop, but still if I press this loop, it's going to behave in the same way that it used to. As soon as I let go of the loop, it starts to record, and then when I press that loop again, it's going to finish it. But you'll notice that time round, it counted me out. But anyway, we need to start the clock, and the clock needs to be running in the background before we start looping. Now, I'm not going to be able to hear the clock unless I have a click or a metronome in my headphones. Now, you can configure the click and metronome to go wherever you want. I'll quickly show you that now. So we have this metronome here, and if I turn that on, it's going to be in my headphones. Let's just quickly show you. If we go into the settings and we click on the metronome settings, you have a few different options when it comes to the sound of the metronome. You can enable it, disable it, and then you can choose your output channels that you want your metronome to go to. So say you have this configured with an audio interface that has multiple sets of outputs. You could be sending the click just to some in-ear monitors or your headphones and not the front of house. At the moment, I just send it to outputs 1 and 2, but when I screen record here, it never records the metronome, which is why you guys won't be able to hear it, but you need to keep that in mind if you're going to be playing live. So it can get complicated, so let's try and pull back here. If we go back to the clock settings, we have now 80 BPM set, a 1-bar loop, and I have turned the metronome on. Now, one more thing to mention, we have this little button here. If I press that, then when the metronome is running, you'll see a visual flash on screen as well. So in order to get this working, I'm going to press the play. I am going to start the clock, and then the metronome and the flash will begin. Now the metronome you won't hear, it will be in my headphones. You might pick it up on the mic a little bit, but let's go. So clearly on screen you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Great. So we press the clock and the metronome is now running, so I can feel when to record. Now, as the clock is running, if you look at this number 80, where it displays 80 BPM in the top right-hand corner, you can see it's rotating around. So you can see the top right-hand corner is going to be measure 1 from the bar, and then it's working its way around. So we're currently on 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, that's important because if I tap this loop halfway around that bar, say 2 beats into the bar, it's going to wait for 2 beats and then we start recording. If I press it quite soon into that bar, we might have to wait for nearly 3 or more beats before we record. If we press it extremely close, it might start recording immediately. Let me demonstrate what I mean. So I'm going to press play. So at the moment, I'll just count this. We've got 1, 2. So I'm going to press it on the 2 and we'll see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Now, we haven't quite configured this properly yet, and I wanted to display this error so that you get the idea. What did I want originally? I wanted a 1-bar loop. I wanted it to count me in, and I wanted it to count me out. Now this is kind of the underlying most important thing to understand in Loopy Pro, and that is what's called count in and count out settings. So we need to go into our settings and check that we have things set up the way we want, because we were just hoping Loopy Pro would do it for us. Now the problem here is Loopy Pro has different versions. We've got older versions, the later versions now, and sometimes the app updates might change what the default behavior is. So you've got to understand what's going on if you want to keep it the way you had it. So let's delete this loop because it didn't work out. I didn't get my 1-bar loop. And let's jump into some settings. We're going to go to the top right-hand corner here. We're going to go into clip settings, and then we want the recording settings. Now, the first thing I want to turn on is something called auto count out, because I'm not using a foot pedal at the moment. This video is assuming you simply have Loopy Pro and you're experimenting with just touching your iPad or iPhone at the moment. So we're going to need auto count out. I'm going to turn that on. That means it's going to count us out. Now, when it comes to count in quantization and count out quantization, for this lesson, we're just going to leave it on loop, meaning it's going to count us in for however long that loop is. If it's a 1-bar loop, it's going to wait for 1 bar. If it's a 2-bar loop, it's going to wait for 2 bars, etc. So if we press play on our clock this time, wait for a couple of beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and. This time, we get a perfectly recorded first loop, right? Okay, so it's now behaving in the way that I originally wanted. Basically, the setting we were missing was something called auto count out, meaning it's going to count us out to make sure it matches the bar length that we've set here. So we now have a count in and a count out on, meaning we have time to press the screen and get to our instrument. That's really, really important to understand, because the first method in this module was all about recording immediately and having some free looping. There's some advantages to that and some disadvantages. The main advantage of what we're learning here is it's always going to start perfectly in time, not when I let go or get it wrong, and it's always going to perfectly finish. Again, I take away that risk. That's why I really like this, especially for beginners. The problem is, I think it's quite complicated to get your head around. That's why I'm trying to break this down into very simple steps so that you understand. That's why this video is quite long, for quite a basic thing to understand. But we have a loop, we have set a tempo, and we have chosen a bar length. But let's adjust this. Let's go for something like 110 BPM this time. Let's go for a 2-bar loop, and then let's press play. Okay, the clock is going, and you can see up here we are now displaying a 2-bar loop, so the beginning is there. Now if I press halfway through this loop cycle, we're gonna have to wait for 2 bars before we start. Okay, I'm going to show you a way to change that in a moment, but I want you to understand the default behavior when it's set to a tempo. So we're pressing play here, and if I press it now, got to wait a bar, and then and just like that, we get a perfectly recorded 2-bar loop. Now this is great because if we want to keep it simple, maybe we've just got into Loopy Pro because we simply want to record a few chords and then have a little noodle, a little jam over the top, maybe layer up some bits. This is perfect, you know? Let's quickly demonstrate how we could layer up here. So I'm going to record a 2-bar loop. And then once it's recorded, if I want to overdub, 2 fingers is going to cue the overdub, okay? And then when I'm finished overdubbing, I can overdub as long as I like. I'm going to press it again, and then it will count me out to the closest loop point. So let's record a 2-bar loop in a 1, 2, 3, 4. That's now looping. If I use 2 fingers, that's now looping. But you'll notice it's still recording, it's still overdubbing. I can add on top of that. But if I press again, it's going to take me out of that overdub mode. There we go. So that's the idea of recording to a metronome in a nutshell. Now let's talk about a couple of limitations and how I would get around that. Now, when you're just doing 1-bar loops or 2-bar loops, waiting that length of time to start and stop the recording is absolutely fine. It's not really a problem. Again, you can see it here. You select your different bar length and then away you go. But let's say you were doing an 8-bar loop, okay? And you wanted to record. So I've just started the clock now. If I press this loop, we're going to have to wait a long time before we can start to record, right? So in that way, that's not really practical. We're now miles away from the idea of like quick looping. So if that's the case and that's what you want to do, I'd suggest you go into clip settings, under recording settings, for your count in quantization, I'd simply set a custom length. Now, basically 1 bar always works perfect for me. I rarely need more than 1 bar to do what I'm going to do. I'm normally pretty much ready to go within a beat or 2. So 1 bar now means that no matter what's going on here, I'm always going to be ready to start my loop. And then it'll record for 8 bars. Now, I won't make you sit through 8 bars of that boring chord progression, but you get the idea, right? So we have this ability in Loopy Pro to shape it in amazing ways. But the fundamental idea here is that we are recording to a metronome. It's playing back to a metronome. Everything is perfectly synced. Of course, you can do this across loads of different loops, get very fancy with it, but that's the core concept I wanted you to understand from this video. Now, of course, you can go much further than this. We can configure it so that it counts in a particular way, it counts out in a particular way. That's the amazing power of Loopy Pro. But let's keep it simple. Let's just say at the moment we want to set a tempo via tap, or using this slider here, choose a bar length, press play, and then start recording, right? So let's go for something fun. Let's do a 2-bar loop at 146. You know, more funking away. And I can stop it. 2, 3, 4, and bring it back in perfect. Let's overdub. And then you're in. And away you go. You can enjoy looping in Loopy Pro. So hopefully that gives you a really good understanding of the advantages of using a tempo-based workflow. That's my favorite way of doing it. There are hybrid approaches, which we are going to look at in future videos, where we use tempo-based recording, but we have free loops so that it's in time, it counts us in. We record for as long as we want, but then we trigger the end point. That might sound a bit confusing, but hopefully it makes sense. But yes, this is all about getting that start and stop point perfect every time. And that really helps a lot of us and makes us sound sometimes a little bit better than we are. Foot pedal control, I've always not been amazing at in terms of starting and stopping my loops. I'm probably not too bad, but you know, sometimes I get that wrong. Whereas this, I'm not going to get it wrong. It keeps it nice and tight for me. But that's it for this video. Hopefully it was useful on giving you a good understanding of tempo-based recording in Loopy Pro. See you in the next one. Cheers.